Hey guys, this is the Qualisports Dolphin Plus dual battery folding electric bike, and this is my mom, Camille.
Hi.
I'm excited to test this out with her. She's petite, it's a folding electric bike, they tend to be very approachable, but this is unique. Normally I'm at a shop, and in fact 2019, that's when I covered the regular Dolphin. That was Electric Bicycle Center in Southern California. In this case, there weren't any shops nearby. Qualisports just sent this. She's gonna keep it, so I want to be transparent about that. In that sense, it's kind of a gift, but I'm gonna do my best to cover this in a way that's authentic and impartial. And then over time, we can get some more feedback from her on, how it holds up. So $18.99 on this thing. We got some additional racks and some seat post clamps and stuff. By the way, on their website, they have a really good unboxing video. It's like 90% assembled. And that's one of the benefits of a folding electric bike. It's not as much work. So if you are, a person who doesn't have a lot of space or tools, you should be able to get this thing going just fine. So far, so good. It took a little bit of fooling around to get that light straight, and I stripped it at the very end, so you need two hands, but it includes most of the tools that you would need. I used one of my own screwdrivers that had a bigger handle, and then when I was putting the handlebar on the bike, I folded down the steer post, and that way I wasn't stretching the cables a whole lot. The last step is to put the main 504 watt hour battery on, and you just put it into this really big seat tube. So one of the trade-offs with these bikes, because this is one of the batteries, you can't replace this with a suspension post, and the bike doesn't have a suspension fork or anything. The tires are fairly high volume, but you just get sort of a steeper attack angle, which is a little bit more jarring than a full-size bicycle with larger wheels and suspension and stuff. So I wanted to call that out and just show you the progress so far on assembly. And this is the second frame battery, and it's cool. It's got a USB charging port in the end, and we're just gonna slide that in. So it's nice to have a second pair of hands. Thank you so much, Mom.
You're welcome.
We can lock it into place. So you can get the Dolphin with just a single battery pack right there. That's that 504 watt hour pack we were talking about. Then it'd be $15.99. If you go for the Plus version we have here, that second battery is about 336 watt hours, and then you end up with 840 watt hours. That's almost a kilowatt hour of capacity, and I feel like the weight distribution is pretty good. I mean, if you think about this battery here and that one, some of the compromises, you can see that there's kind of this bottom bracket area. It's a little bit lower, especially if you have that seat post taken down, and they do have some markings on the back so that you don't want to go any lower than this. This says maximum, and here's the charging port right here for the first battery pack. You can charge the batteries off the bike, but coming down here and unscrewing it and taking it all off, I probably wouldn't want to do that. I'm mentioning all of this because with lithium-ion batteries, the extreme cold is going to cut your range significantly. So you can imagine if this was left in a garage overnight and it's cold in the morning, you're just not going to get the same range. Extreme heat can be kind of hard on the cells, I've heard. Over time, if they're in a really hot garage, for example, you're not going to get as many full charge cycles. So keep those things in mind. I mean, it's pretty versatile. It could fold. Maybe it goes in your RV or a storage cabinet or something. In the specs, they said these are 170 millimeter crank arms, but the one that I got has 165, which makes sense because this is already a bike that's pretty low to the ground and you don't want to have pedal strikes. So a little bit of a shorter crank helps. 52 tooth chainring steel. It's not narrow wide or anything. It's kind of basic, but you've got this plastic guard, which is going to protect your pants or dress from touching the greasy chain and getting snagged. So that's nice. And it acts as a bit of a guide, at least on this side, so that the chain won't drop off as easily. It's something I care about with a folding bike because it could be folded and end up on its side or upside down, and getting that chain back on is just not a whole lot of fun. Pretty basic drivetrain here, with a 14 to 28 tooth 7-speed freewheel, and then down here Shimano Tourney. This is entry level, but it's a Shimano part, which is nice, and we have the derailleur guard and kind of protects this whole area. Again, if the bike is folded and it tips over, this is the motor power cable, so you don't want that to bend or to get cut, because then the bike isn't going to work. Back here, we've got a Qualisports branded planetary geared hub motor rated at 500 watt nominal. Hub motors are less expensive. They're simpler. You can use the throttle, and if your chain goes off or something, maybe the drivetrain has an issue, you can still kind of limp home just by using that hub motor. But they aren't known for having super high torque. When combined with a smaller wheel, like these 20-inch wheels, you do get a mechanical advantage. So don't get me wrong, I think it's offering a decent amount of power, but the way that it's set up with the controller, it's definitely smoother, and I actually like that. I sometimes it's overwhelming if it's and it takes off, and you know, especially in those higher levels of assist. So I think they've smoothed it out. That's going to give you a better range, and it's just going to be a more comfortable, secure feeling when you ride. Those hydraulic disc brakes are also going to get a mechanical advantage. So pretty awesome setup here. 160 millimeter rotors front and rear, dual piston calipers. The brand isn't something I've really seen before, but again, they're hydraulic, and both of them are easy to actuate. A lot of times with mechanical, the right brake lever, which goes back to that rear brake, it usually just takes more hand effort. And if you are a petite person like my mom, you can bring these levers in a little bit. There's a set screw, you can adjust them, and they're just not going to require as much hand effort. On a cold day like this, where your hands might be getting cold, again, having an easy, intuitive, just cockpit up here with easy to use brakes makes a big difference. You can see how the trigger shifters have an optical window so you can visibly identify what gear you're in. The low lever can shift 3 at once. The high lever, it's 1 at a time. You actually have to use your index finger to reach that one. I prefer when you can use your thumb for both, but this is sort of an entry part. It's probably Shimano Tourney. In my experience riding the bike, I think it's geared kind of high. I found that we were pedaling in the lowest or second lowest gear most of the time, and we were on pretty flat surfaces. We weren't climbing a lot of hills. I love that you can raise the handlebar position here. There's a lot of adjustability in the saddle. We got those plastic folding pedals. Maybe not my favorite because they just flex a little bit, but they do fold, so you can save some space when you're folding this thing down. It's just not going to take up as much room. And then all of the accessories and stuff. One thing I didn't see is, you know, standard bottle cage bosses, but that would impact your standover height, and trying to put them on the battery seat post, it would kind of mess up how low you could go. And then these tires down here, I mentioned they're 20 inches, 20 by 2.3, so a little bit wider. It's going to give you some stability, a little bit more float, and just some cushion, right? Depending on the air pressure that you set these on. Pretty wide range, 35 to 60 PSI. Unfortunately, no reflective sidewall stripes, no puncture protection rating that I can see. These are Annova. And if you look at the black frame, I mean, it looks nice because all the cables and stuff sort of blend in, but it just doesn't have that same visual footprint as if you had some more reflective stuff. So I'm in black. You know, I do have a helmet with a little light built in, which is good, and I wear a backpack sometime and some reflective clothing. Safety is a big deal for me, though, and if you're, you know, traveling with this thing and you're in a sort of a new environment and you're around cars and stuff, just be careful. And again, grateful for the light. Maybe I'd put it up here, and I would just think about how else you can make yourself visible. Qualisports offers a 1-year comprehensive warranty, which is pretty great at this price point, and they say they're using Samsung cells in their battery packs, and that's a brand that I recognize and trust, so this is above average in terms of affordable folding bikes. Well, guys, I spent some additional time getting the accessories on. The front fender was pretty easy. I did take the headlight off and then mount it back because there are 2 flats right there. We got the rear fender that has these 2 support arms. It's doing pretty well, but in order to get the rack on, you kind of need to double up on this lower bolt, and it can be maybe a 2-person job. I was trying to get this really secure because it's rated at 25 kilograms, 55 pounds. It's pretty solid. And as I was doing that, I stripped, unfortunately, the boss right there where you screw in. So that one, it's a little bit loose. I haven't over tightened it at this point. All in all, with the pannier blockers here and the big platform for maybe a trunk bag, an optional additional rear light if you wanted to add one right there, it's not bad. I mean, so the other compromise I noticed is that if you try to add this front rack and you also want to have that headlight, it kind of sits too low and they start to collide, so you have to move that headlight up here, which is why there's additional wire here wrapped around. And in so doing, you know, this front basket, it stays straight, it mounts to the frame, so then the headlight wouldn't point where you steer. Also, the front and rear fender, these are steel, just like the chainring, so over time, if they get scratched and maybe you're riding or the bike tips or something, that could start to rust, whereas most of the rest of the frame that I've observed is aluminum alloy, so the little scratches, you know, you'll see some silver below, but they won't actually rust. Right here, we don't have a slap guard on this frame either. So when you're in that high gear, that 14-tooth sprocket, the chain can get pretty close, and over time, I think you will get these little chips and stuff coming through. They could have added a little plastic slap guard, but you could always get your own, you know, box tape, kind of a clear sticker, and do it yourself. Or on Amazon, they sell slap guards as well. So this is the battery charger. It weighs about 2 pounds, and I love that it is 3 amp output. I'm used to seeing 2 amp, especially for bikes that are a little bit more affordable like this. It's a bit longer, and it has this plastic connector. Sometimes it's nice to have metal, to have it be a little bit tougher, especially when the charging port is down here by the left crank. And, you know, if this goes by and snags this and pulls it out, you just don't want to have it crack. Again, overall, pretty nice, especially with that dual battery option. You're just going to be able to charge both batteries from this port right here. There is another charging port for the, you know, seat post battery, but for me, being able to charge both simultaneously if you get the Plus model is great. I was told that it starts with the frame battery first, fills that all the way up, and then it moves to the seat post. And again, if you want to, you can charge both of these separately off of the bike, and that comes back to avoiding extreme temperatures, trying not to let them get fully discharged, or just making the bike lighter and easier to transport. Battery weighs about 7.5 pounds. The down tube battery is only 4 pounds, and the motor weighs about 7 pounds. To activate the bike, once the batteries are all charged up and installed, just press the power button here on this little button pad. It's a grayscale display. It swivels a little bit, and it's pretty easy to read. It's a bright sunny day, and I can see it clearly. To me, it's great that it has a little USB charging port in the bottom. So remember, there's another one on that battery, but you can't really reach it when it's installed. So this one, you could maybe mount your phone and charge that on the go, or you could add additional lights for that improved visibility. And when you have 2 batteries, being able to draw from that is just wonderful. So kudos to them for doing it. You got to reach over the thumb throttle to get to these buttons, but it's not terrible. There's an up, there's a down. That's kind of it. Up here at the top of the display, we have a 4-tick battery infographic, so it's 25% increments, not super precise. It would be nicer if this was like a percentage, or maybe we had a range estimate or something, but no, it's just kind of basic. And then we have timer over there, assist level, and it always starts out in 1. Note that the throttle doesn't work unless you're actually moving the cranks a little bit, and this cadence sensor down here is listening for that action. So if I pedaled and I held down the throttle for a second, then it would kick in and I could motor away. The throttle is actually sort of constrained by the level of assist that you choose. So if we're in level 1, you're not going to be able to go very fast. You're not going to get the same power as if we were in level 5 using the throttle. To me, I like throttles that activate like regardless of whether I'm pedaling, because maybe you're at a stop sign or something and you just want to ease off the line and kind of have that control. Having to pedal, maybe it's a safety thing and that way the throttle doesn't get bumped or something, but it is a compromise. And then having the power capped by the levels, again, it's just a trade-off. Here we have speed, so it's in kilometers per hour right now, and then distance at the bottom. If we press the power button, it cycles through some different readouts. So this is like trip time, and then we have average speed, odometer. Press it again, max speed, voltage, and then we're kind of back at the beginning. There are a couple secrets in here. If we hold the up arrow, it activates the headlight. There's a little light icon. And again, this isn't super bright light, but it's going to help you to be seen. It'd be nice if it was mounted up a little higher just to keep you safer, but I like that it has those side windows. In addition to that integrated headlight, they do ship a battery powered, it's got 2 AAA batteries, rear light, and it connects just below the saddle. Independent means, you know, it's not wired in and you have to worry about turning this off manually each time so that those batteries don't get fully discharged and then the light won't work. Also, where it's positioned, you know, your coat could hang down below the saddle and potentially block this, or if you have the rear rack option, you could put a bunch of cargo and block it. So it's a compromise, but at least they include it. You know, they're trying to be safe. If we hold the down arrow for a couple seconds, we get walk mode, which can be very helpful if you get a flat tire. Maybe you've got a bunch of groceries and you're trying to keep them from tipping or something. Maybe you're just in a crowded area and it's not appropriate to ride. So it's nice to have that. and then you can hold down while riding to activate cruise control. So that's pretty cool. You wouldn't have to be pressing on that thumb throttle the whole time. And if we hold up and down simultaneously, we get into the settings menu where you can make some different adjustments and clear some of these menus like trip distance and stuff. So we'll go ahead and do that, stow the kickstand. Oh, and I should mention, I appreciate where the kickstand is. As I back the bike up, see, it's not causing pedal lock or anything. And I think it's adjustable, so you can get the bike standing up perfectly straight. I'm just gonna take off. Oh yeah. Yeah, as expected, pretty smooth. It's kind of a light touch. It's gonna save some battery, and it's just gonna feel more comfortable, like you're more in control as you ride. Okay, Mom, well, I know you haven't ridden a lot, but it's gonna be fun to hear how this works. As you've never had an electric bike, we've ridden some together. You've done this before, you've been my test buddy. Yeah. You have a kind of a city or road bike. How do you see yourself using this? Like, what did you think of the ride?
Very nice, easy to get on and off, even though it's a heavier bike because it's so low, I can balance it. Because I'm so 5'3.5", it's really a good fit for me.
Perfect.
I would definitely ride this from my house downtown on the bike paths, and I will use it.
You know, I've heard you talk about riding with friends where they go faster or farther. Did you see yourself using this to keep up, or what do you think?
No, because where we ride, you have to put it, I have to put it on my bike rack, and it's so heavy.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that. I would still ride my bike.
So we were looking at like the specialized, they have the SL models, super light, but those are super expensive. This is like $1,500 with one battery. It'd be like, you know, 47, 48 pounds. Still a little heavy for you on the bike rack for the car. Plus there's no crossbar here. You'd have to get a crossbar adapter because your bike rack is one that hangs. Yeah. And unfortunately, because this battery pack, yeah, technically it's removable, but you got to get down on your hands and knees and you got to unplug that and then take the seat off. It's doable, but it's a little inconvenient. So I think that's our feedback, trying to be transparent and objective. It'll be fun to hear how this goes. Maybe check in 6 months or a year.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mom. I love you.
Fun. Thank you. Love you too.
A few more quick points I wanted to make. The bike comes in 4 different colors. There's black, metallic gray, blue, and red. And now you can lock the seat post battery, which wasn't the case before. They sell a special clamp with a kind of circular lock, but that costs extra. It's about $60. And so in that case, both batteries lock to the frame, but then you got to keep track of 2 different keys. And when you're folding the bike, it can rest on that seat post. It's got a rounded plastic cap at the bottom, and there's a magnet and a piece of metal to kind of keep the bike folded. It's not perfect. You might want to use a bungee cable and maybe put a towel or a blanket between the bikes so things don't scratch and rattle around too much. Back at this site, I have a comparison tool. You can look at some of the other folding electric bikes. There's also forums. You can ask people who have owned this longer and, you know, tested it a bit more. Ride safe. We'll see you next time.